And while we're on a topic of use callback, why don't we also cover use memo, which is very similar. The difference is that use memo memoizes the value that we're getting back from the function. So essentially, again, it remembers that value. Now, in this example, I'll just show you with slow function, but later on the course, we'll use it to debounce some functionality. So in one of the complex projects, essentially there's going to be a input, and we'll use memo to debounce some functionality, basically to run some functionality later. Now, why am I telling you that? Just so you don't think that we can only use for the example I'm about to show you. So use memoize is actually very cool. You can do a bunch of interesting stuff. Again, in our case, we'll just take a look at the slow function example. So the way use memo works is very similar to use callback. We get use memo, and then again, notice it's looking for two arguments. First one is going to be the function. However, in this case, we're returning something from the function. And then the second one is going to be the dependency array. Now, in our case, in our example, we won't have any values in dependency array. It's only going to run once. Now, as far as our example, let's imagine that in our project, we have some kind of slow function that's doing some kind of calculation. Now, I will simulate that by setting up a very ugly for loop. So please don't judge me on this one. So essentially, let's create a function. I'll call this slow function JS in there. Set up this function. Again, simply, there's a value that I'm setting up a for loop, which I haven't done probably in 4 years or so. And then once I'm done with this long for loop, I just return a value. Effectively, it's just going to take quite some time to generate that value. So this function returns a value, and in the index, I want to import the slow function, I want to invoke it, and I want to set it equal to value. And you'll see the result. So let's navigate to the hooks. Like I said, in my case, I'll call this slow function. And as a side note, if you don't want to work on this example, you don't have to. You can just see the result. And I'm pretty sure you'll get the main gist of use memo. So let's go to tutorial. Let me grab this. I don't think there's a need to create it from the scratch. Now I want to make sure that I'm in a starter. Yep, that's my function. Then we want to navigate back to index. We want to import that function, and I'm going to rely on auto import, and I'll right away set it equal to a value. So I'll say value is equal to, and then slow function. Yep, we invoke it. We don't need to pass anything, and I simply want to log the value. So let me go with console log, and we're looking for the value. Let me save. And again, same deal. Pretty much every time I'll click on a count, it's going to take time for my component to render. You'll see that it's definitely slower. If you would have, for example, some kind of input, and if you're typing, it's going to be with delay. So let me just showcase that. I'm going to go to button, and I'll click like 6-7 times. And you'll notice that the value is not updating right away. Why? Well, because again, we're changing the state value. We are re-rendering. And what do we do in each render? We run this slow function. And since our slow function is really slow, well, that's why it takes ages for me to see that count of 9. And this is where the UseMemo hook can definitely help us. Again, the syntax is extremely similar to use callback. We can go with UseMemo, we import the hook, and now I want to set up this slow function in the UseMemo. And as a result, you'll see that the slow function is only going to run once when our initial render takes place. So let's go with UseMemo. Again, 2 arguments. In this case, I'll pass in empty dependency array. Then I want to grab my slow function, but again, this needs to return a value. So let me cut this one out. I'll pass here the arrow function, like so, and then we'll invoke slow function. And now you'll notice that once we refresh, yep, the initial render takes a little bit of time, but after that, everything's cool. So unless I provide some kind of value in this dependency array, this initial value, the one that takes really long time for the slow function to calculate, it's only going to run once. I'm only going to get that value on initial render, and that's it. Since the value is not changing, essentially, I'm not slowing down my component every time a state update takes place.